Alright guys, we got something a little different tonight. Let's talk about it. Okay, so I recently had a friend reach out to me and they gave me the opportunity to bid on a fairly large piping project. So what needs to happen is there's a bunch of large bore pipe that needs to be replaced. It's pretty much a preventative maintenance project where we would be tearing out the old piping, fabricating new piping exactly the same dimensions and specifications, and then we would be replacing it. From what I understand, and I'm still trying to understand this whole process about the way it will all work, but from what I understand, the contractor would hire Freedom Fab as a subcontractor just to do the welding on the piping. I've welded a lot of pipe. I'm comfortable welding pipe, and I think that I am capable of doing this job. But I've never had my pipe certification. To be able to be eligible to bid on this job, I have to have pipe certification. So I've been doing all kinds of research. I've been talking to a bunch of people on the phone, weld inspectors. Basically, there are a lot of options for this job that would get me certified to where I am certified to weld on this size pipe. The job includes mainly 8-inch and 12-inch pipe. There is some 2-inch, but it's threaded. But the way I look at it, if I can get a certification that will cover me from 2-inch clear up to 24-inch, why not do it? It may be a more difficult test, and time is of the essence with this one because I've got to get the bid submitted. But even if I don't win the bid, I still feel like that's a win for me because I'm still progressing, I'm getting better, and it makes me more eligible for other piping jobs in the future. So what we're going to talk about tonight is pipe coupons, prepping the coupons, fitting the coupons, and doing a weld test. And when I say coupons, these are coupons. Whatever the specified pipe size is, you take 2 pieces of that pipe, you bevel it on a 30-degree bevel or whatever it calls for, typically 30-degree bevel. And then you clean it up, you give it a land, and you fit it up, and then you weld it out. And there are all different sizes and types of coupons and tests and certifications. And that's one of the things that makes it so confusing when you have to be certified. And that's why when people say, well, I'm a certified welder, that's great, and I'm not making light of that, but in reality, you can be a certified tack welder on paper, and you really can. Just to go over what some of these are Schedule 40 2-inch pipe coupons. They are beveled on a 30-degree angle. We are going to weld this out. I need to submit 2 of these to a NDT place, non-destructive testing place, in Salt Lake City, where they'll do all sorts of structural tests on them, and they'll either pass me or fail me. These here are pipe coupons that I've had for a while, and it's just one of those things where I've always told myself I'm going to get this test done, and I just haven't done it. So this is the monster pipe test. And if you guys watch a lot of welding and stuff on YouTube, I'm sure you've seen this test. This is Schedule 120 pipe. It's got like 5/8 wall. You can see that's a pretty big test. So you'll gap that, you'll do the root, fill, and cap, and you can run it with TIG or stick or MIG or whatever. Again, it all depends on what the specifications are on what the certification that you need. Here we have some Schedule 46-inch coupons. Tonight, we're going to talk about fitting these. My goal is to run this test tonight. So the way we're going to run it, because the specifications that it calls for on this job, I need to be certified to weld the 8-inch and the 12-inch pipe. There is also some small bore. If I can get certified in this size pipe on this test, a Schedule 80 2-inch pipe test, and I'm going to weld the root with 60-10 uphill in a 6G position. A 6G position is when the test is on a 45-degree angle. So that way you have to weld overhead, vertical up, and flat. So it's all positions, and it is the most difficult. So if I can weld these out with 60-10 root, 70-18 cap and fill in a 6G position and pass, then I'll be certified to be able to weld the piping on this job that I'm trying to submit a bid for. I'm under the gun here, so I'm just going to go for it. That's what we do. We go for it. We're going to get these all prepped up. I'm going to show you guys how I prep them, and we'll start fitting them. I'm going to get all my stuff set up, and we'll go from there. All right, so we're talking prep work now. So I've got to get these coupons prepped up. Now you can see they're beveled, but there's zero land here. And land is the flat spot right on the edge. I'll show you what I mean once I get that prepped up. But I got to take the grinder and I got to knock a flat spot on there. That's going to help us when we're running our root so that it doesn't just keyhole and blow through. So I'm going to put about a 332 land on this, and then I've also got to knock the mill scale off the outside. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see that, but there's a flat spot right here on this now. That's my land, so it's about 332. One thing you can do to check is take a piece of 332 70-18 and put it right there on the face, and it's about perfect. So you can use the butt end of the rod to check to make sure your land is the right size. So I feel good about that. Now I just got to knock the mill scale off the outside. Okay, so I don't want to dig or anything, I just want to knock the mill scale off. Now I'm going to do the other one. Okay, so now that that part's done, so the next thing we want to do is we want to take and clean up the inside of the pipe. So I'm going to take my Milwaukee die grinder here, so I'll just hit this with a flapper wheel inside and knock all the mill scale off the inside, get it down to nice clean metal, and then it will be ready to tack it up. Okay, so you can see that looks nice and clean inside now. So when I tack these together, I'm going to tack the seams together. I'm going to tack them together with the seams lined up. So I'm going to grab a piece of angle. I'm going to put it in the vise here. That'll help me get these lined up. And then I'll show you guys how I like to tack them up. Alright, so I got a piece of angle here in my vise. One of the reasons you see angle on the back of welding rigs is because they use the angle to help them fit pipe, and it helps them get the pipe lined up to where it's nice and concentric. And then we're going to gap this with 332 gap, and I'm going to make it just a little bit loose because when I tack it, I'm sure it's going to pull. We're running the XMT tonight. We've got it set at 65 amps. Let's see if we can get this tacked up. All right, well, this is embarrassing. I am completely out of 332 60-10, so we will not be finishing this tonight. It is 8:30, so I'm gonna have to get to the welding store tomorrow and buy some rod, and we'll try to finish this tomorrow. Okay, we got some rod. Boy, do we have some rod. We got $350 worth of rod. So we're gonna go ahead and get back where we were at last night, only we're gonna make some headway because now we got rod. So we're gonna get this tacked up, and once I get it tacked, I'll show you guys what we'll do next. So just to give you guys a look, this is the kind of rod we're running. 332 60-10, they call it 5P plus. And then we're running Bowler 332 70-18. I ended up getting the big can because they didn't have a small can. Luckily, I'll be able to burn it up if I get this job because I'll need a boatload of it. And then I figured on a test, every little bit helps. So we're going to run brand new rod, brand new 60-10, brand new 70-18. So let's get this tacked up. When you're doing a test, you want to make sure that you keep your arc strikes inside the bevel. You want to try not to have any outside. I've heard that you can fail a pipe test if you get too many arc strikes outside of the joint, as well as grinder strikes. So you want to try to watch that. Okay, so I'm going to add tacks every 90 degrees. So I'm going to flip 180 from where my last tack was. I'm going to add a tack here. Check the gap. Feels good. I like relatively small tacks, and then we're going to do what's called feathering our tacks, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. I'm going to add these other 2 tacks, and then I'll show you how to feather your tacks. Okay, so you also want to make sure that your tacks penetrate through. If they haven't penetrated through into the pipe, you may want to grind the tack out and start it over, because when you come around, you want to make sure that you heat up your tack and continue to keyhole and push some weld through and make your tack part of the root so that it's consistent. Okay, so now I'm going to take a zip disc. A lot of times you can use a pipe liner disc, which is, it's a thinner hard disc that'll fit into the bevel of the pipe. I don't have any pipe liners right now, so I'm just going to use a cut-off wheel, and I'm going to go ahead and feather these tacks, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Alright, so here is our pipe coupons tacked together. You feather them on both sides. You want to make them as small as possible so that they can still hold the pipe together, but you want to make them small enough that when you get to them, it's going to blow through your tack and the root will look consistent on the inside of the pipe. So that's the point of feathering your tacks. Alright, so yesterday when I realized I didn't have any rod, I went ahead and built this. It's just simple. Got a piece of angle here to hold the pipe coupon. I can loosen this bolt and I can slide this up or down for taking tests. Not that I plan on taking a whole bunch of tests, but you never know. Maybe Bridger will get to that point where he wants to take some tests and get some certifications. Now we've got a jig set up that'll hold the coupons, so I figure why not. So I throw this in the vise. I'm gonna level this up. So now that this is level, if I put my level in here, see that's nice and level on a 45. So if you're running a 6G test, you want to make sure that your pipe is on a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to go ahead and tack this on here. You know, I may burn something on the burn table so that I can slide this in here, clamp it down. I really don't like tacking these on here. Alright, I got it figured out. I'm going to burn a little bracket on the burn table real quick, and then I'm going to weld that on here. Weld a nut on it, and then I can screw this down with a bolt, and then when someone needs to take a test, slide this in, tighten the bolt down, and you're set. So I'm going to hurry and burn that, and then I'll come back to you guys. Alright, so here's what I've done. Burned that piece on the table, got it welded on here. Now, I made it big enough that you can put the monster coupons in it, and then the bolt will tighten down here. That will keep your coupons from moving while you're working. That keeps them in there nice and solid. So now that I got that set up, that's all set up, we're gonna put our coupon in here. Tighten this down. It's solid, it's not gonna move, I like that. Alright, so we're ready now to weld this out. I'm gonna set the camera up. I'll try to get some video of what I'm doing. When I run this, I'm gonna start at the bottom here. So I'm gonna light up, I'm gonna drag back over my tack, and then I'll heat up the tack, and then I'm gonna weld up to the top here. When I'm doing this, I like to whip it, so I run kind of a whip pattern. So I'll pull out of the keyhole and then back and out, and then back in, and then out, and then back in. That's the way I like to do it. Some guys just drag it, run it tight into the bevel and drag it. I think both ways work. It just depends on what you like. I run a whip. So positioning is one of those things that's really hard about running tests, and I mean even just flat out welding, because you've got to get like this. I'll probably rest my elbow here and I'll start, and then I'll just try to come up like this. Some guys like to brace, so they'll hold it with one hand and then run it one-handed. If you watch Welding Tips and Tricks, he runs a lot of these tests, and that's one thing he does is he'll balance with his pinky and then he'll kind of link them together like this, and then when he comes up and around, he's always got a steady hold with his hand on something. So I'm going to play with this for a minute. I'm going to decide how I want to run this, and then I'll get back with you guys. Alright, I think I've got an idea about what I want to do. You know what? I'm going to start this right-handed. It'll help me warm up, and it's going to be the easier side for me because I'm right-handed. So we're going to start on this side, and we'll run it just like this. So we're running at 65 amps. Here goes nothing. Okay, so my first rod only made it to there. You can see we got a nice big keyhole. It hasn't been getting away from me, so I'm going to keep running it at 65 amps. The root looks really good so far, and I'll give you guys a look at that once I get this done. I'm just hoping that I can keep the consistency that I've got and keep going. I think I'm going to feather this with a grinder, and then I'll light up, drag back, and then run it over. You need to make sure what type of procedure you need to take the test for. Some procedures don't let you use a grinder. Some procedures you have to use a file. For us, we can use a grinder. Okay, so we feathered that start-stop. So when I drag back, that should bleed right through and blend the root right together. And then I should be good to just keep going. Alright, so my keyhole was getting away from me right here. So I probably should have turned that down just a little bit. At this point, there's no turning back now, so it's not terrible. We'll see what it looks like, but I'm going to turn my welder down now to do this other side. Plus, you got to remember, the pipe is blistering hot now, so it's not going to run the same way it did when I started when it was cool. And it was warm from tacking it. It was still warm, but now it's freaking hot, and so it's not going to run the same with the temperature that high. So we're going to go ahead and turn the welder down, probably 5 amps, and we'll run this other side. Hopefully you guys can see in there, but I blew it. So I ended up blowing through right here. Keyhole got too big, and you can see there's a big droopy right there at the top. The rest of the root looks pretty dang good, other than this side where it started getting hot. But it didn't get so hot that it got away from me. Right here it got away from me, and now there's a big nasty booger hanging down inside the pipe, so that's a fail. That would be fail number 1. That's why we're practicing. So I'm gonna grab a wire wheel, knock the slag off this. I am gonna fill this up because I'm doing this for practice. So if I'm doing this for practice, I need to make it practice. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna finish filling this up, fix it. Then I'm gonna hit this with a wire wheel, and then I've got to cap it with 7018. It's not gonna hurt anything to get the practice in. Even though I know I've already failed, I can still run the 7018 over the top and get the practice of running a cap pass. So that's what we're going to do now. Okay, so I think I've discovered part of my problem. I ground off this high spot. There was a high spot right there on the bottom. There was a high spot right here where I started with my second rod on this side. Everything looks pretty good right here. I think my problem was I was going too slow. When I try this again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this cool, throw it in the saw, I'll cut it, re-bevel it, run another practice. I'm just gonna keep running practice tests until I get it. So now I'm gonna run some 7018. We'll run a cap on this. We're using the Bowler 332 7018 rod. I'm gonna run it about 90 amps. We'll turn the welder up, we'll grab some 7018, we'll try running a cover on this. I'm gonna go ahead and hit that with a wire wheel. Alright, so here's where we're at. I don't think it looks too bad. I did get a little bit of undercut here, right there at the top. This all looks good here, no undercut there. There's a little spot right there at the bottom, right there with a little bit of sag. And then coming up here, there's a little bit of undercut right there, and that little spot right there on the top. But I feel fairly good about that. I mean, this is the first practice test I've ran in years. I'm not real disappointed with that. I failed. I know I would have failed, but I know what I need to improve on too. So the root is going to be the biggest thing for me, I think. I feel like my cap pass looks decent. It can definitely look better. I've got to get rid of the undercut and that little spot on the bottom where I had some sag where the start and stop was. The way it is now, it's not going to pass. So we're going to get that other coupon over here on the table in the saw. I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to throw it in the lathe. I'm going to bevel it. And then I'm going to get right back over here and start fitting it up to run another one. I'll go ahead and do that now, and then I'll give you guys an update when I get to that point. Alright guys, so I got my coupons here. You can see I got my land put on there. They're beveled. I still need to clean up the mill scale on the outside here. I'm going to do that. I'm also going to clean up the inside with my die grinder. Couple of things real quick before I start on this next one. I think I need to keep a lot tighter arc, and I think I need to move a lot faster. So those are the things I'm going to focus on this next one. This is probably not all that exciting for you guys to watch. So I'm going to put this in time lapse, and I'm going to go ahead and run another one, and then I'll give you a look when I get the root ran and then the cap pass. I'll give you guys updates, but we are going to go into time lapse so you guys don't fall asleep or change the channel or something. So let's do that now. Alright, so that one went a little better. Still had a little bit of a high spot down here, so I ground that down just a little bit. Other than that funky spot on the right, it is fairly consistent. So now we're going to run some 7018, run a cap over it. My goal is to try and run this one without any sag or any undercut, so we'll see how it goes. So this side turned out really good, but on this side there is a little undercut right here, so that's not good. But I don't know if you guys noticed, but I ran this side left-handed, just to try it. You don't know if you don't try, and the whole point is to practice, so I figured I'll try it left-handed, see how that goes. It was tougher. I probably should have welded it right-handed, but now I know. So we'll be back out here tomorrow night practicing again. I do think we made some headway, and the second one looks better than the first one, so that's always a good sign. I don't claim to be the world's greatest welder, obviously, but I do believe in making yourself better and progressing, and that's what I'm trying to do. So I hope that you guys are getting some good info out of this, and I hope that possibly it'll help somebody out there who's thinking about taking their 6G test. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We're gonna try to get our game face on. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, guys, we got this all prepped up. Tacks are feathered, so we're all ready. So we're gonna give my buddy's method a try, see how it goes. You know, I would encourage you guys just to try this. If you have any interest in possibly welding pipe, just dive in and try it. You can't be scared to try something. Go out and buy a chunk of pipe, even if you have to cut it with a grinder and bevel it with a grinder. A lot of guys don't have a lathe and stuff like that, so they do prep it with a grinder. There's nothing wrong with that. I would recommend just give it a try. If you have any interest in welding pipe, give it a try, because it's going to make you better. You're going to figure out real quick that it is a challenge. But honestly, I'm the type of person that I like things that are challenging. I do kind of enjoy this type of stuff, and even though it may seem like I'm getting my butt kicked, I'm getting better with every practice test I do. Don't be afraid to try something like this. Just dive in and go for it. Anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and run this one. We'll see how it goes. Another pointer for you guys. Some of you guys may have noticed that I'll wrap the lead around my arm like this. That way I'm not holding all the weight of the lead with my hand. If I wrap it around my arm, when I do that, I'm just able to manipulate the stinger however I want, and I don't have to hold all that weight. So that's just what works for me. I'm gonna hit that root with a file. It looks fairly decent. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's the best one I've had so far. But you can see that it's fairly consistent around the whole thing. It protrudes past the pipe, and you can see that top right section is the best section. If I could get the whole thing to look like that, I think that would be sweet. Now I'm going to clean this all up, and I'm going to knock the high spots down. A little bit of a fisheye there, but we should be able to grind that out and cover it up with our 7018 cap. So let's do that now, and then we'll give you guys a look once we get that welded out. Okay guys, halfway through that one I knew that was going to be a fail. It got really heavy right here, and it looks like a big old dog turd right there. It just does not look very good. And there's a little bit of undercut on the top side here. You can see right here a little bit where I finished. The two nemesis for me are the root and the cap. So pretty much the whole thing. No, the root, getting it consistent, and when I run the right side of the pipe, I've got to adjust my speed. The reason this is so bellied out is because my speed was too slow. I gotta get moving, and I gotta keep my arc length tight. I was struggling trying to shuffle over where I was comfortable, and I long arced it, and it ended up digging a bunch of the pipe out. So I had to hurry and correct and fill up the hole. Anyway, it just wasn't good. So those are the two things I'm going to focus on the next one. Consistent root. I like the way the gap ran on this one. I like the way the root ran on this one, so the gap in the land and everything I think is good. But I need to focus on consistency, and on this right side I've got to figure out how I want to brace myself so that I'm comfortable, so that I can keep the arc length tight and keep my speed moving smoothly around the pipe. That's my goals for the next one. I'm sure you guys probably don't want to sit and watch me run test coupons over and over. I just wanted to show you guys that have never taken a pipe welding test before what it's like and how important the prep work is. Hopefully it helps you guys out. Hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully you guys can see that I'm a straight shooter, and I'm going to show you guys the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm not going to try to BS you guys. I'm a firm believer in stretching yourself and always trying to be improving. So that's what we're doing here today. So thanks for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and share, and see you on the next one. What's going on, guys? What's going on, guys? We got something a little different for you tonight. What's up, guys? We got something a little different for you tonight. Let's dive right into it. Okay, so I recently had a friend reach out to me, and they would like me to Again, this will cover you from this certification. If I was to run this test, this would certify me from I was out of 60-10, and if I get this job, I'm going to have a whole boatload of it. So I figured I'll just buy. No, I didn't figure. They told me they didn't have a smaller can, or that's what I would have got. Every little bit helps. And then I'm going to get right back over here. And it was tougher. I probably should have welded it. We'll be back out here tonight. Wow. I've done fried my brain. We'll be back out here tomorrow night. And that's another reason I tell you to get proficient at using a grinder, because the more proficient you are at using a grinder, the better your work looks. You get a better, holy smokes. Hopefully you guys can see that I'm a straight shooter. I'm